Hi, this video is for section 7.8. We are factoring trinomials today. This is a really important lesson. You will be factoring trinomials a lot for the rest of Algebra 1 and when you spend some time in Algebra 2. So pay attention, take good notes as we get started on this. This lesson is called factoring trinomials because you notice we have three terms here. They are separated by these addition signs. So our first term is an x squared. Our second term is the 10x, and our third term is the 21. And to factor the trinomials, we're going to be breaking them apart into our binomials. This first one here we know is a binomial, the x plus 7. It has two terms in it. And this is also a binomial, the x plus 3 has two terms in it. So when you're factoring trinomials, you're going to start with something that looks like this. And you're going to break it apart and end with something that looks like two binomials. As a little warm-up, let's kind of think about these questions a little bit. It'll help us get in the right frame of mind for factoring. Is if I ask you what two numbers add to 8 and also multiply to 12. When you think of this, I highly recommend starting by thinking of what multiplies to 12. There's so many possibilities of what adds to 8. It's really hard to narrow it down fast enough. So what I'm going to recommend is let's make a little list. If we are multiplying to 12, what are some different ways we can multiply to get 12? Let's list some factors. Well, 12 times 1 equals 12. 6 times 2 equals 12. And 4 times 3 equals 12. A calculator could help you with this. A multiplication chart, which you can get on our Schoology page, could help you with this to make your list. Now that you've thought of all the ways to multiply to get you 12, that's kind of a small list that I think is easier to work through. So now the question is, of these three sets, which two numbers will add up to 8? Well, 12 and 1, there's no way 12 and 1 could add up to 8. They add up to 13. 6 and 2, well, 6 plus 2 equals 8. I like that. And then 4 and 3, that adds to 7. So 6 and 2 are definitely going to be my two numbers that add to 8. 6 plus 2 equals 8. And they multiply to 12. 6 times 2 equals 12. So my final answer here, what two numbers add to 8 and multiply to 12? I'm going to say 6 and 2. Let's try again. For this next one, it says, what two numbers add to 7? Lots of numbers add to 7. And also multiply to 10. Now, there's less numbers that multiply to 10. So let's always start with making a list using our multiplication to narrow it down. Well, to multiply to 10, I'd have factors of 10 times 1 or 5 times 2. Which combination will add to 7? Sure enough, it's the 5 and the 2. Because let's think about that. 5 plus 2 equals 7. So they add to 7. And 5 times 2 equals 10. So they multiply to 10. So our answers here are 5 and 2. Let's try a couple more. What two numbers add to 8? Many numbers add to 8, but this time we're multiplying to a negative 20. So there's some different things going on here. We're multiplying to a negative number. Don't worry about that too much. Let's see. Start with the same process where we're going to deal with narrowing things down by doing the multiplication first. So we're looking to see what multiplies to a negative 20. And when I think about multiplying to a negative number, one number is going to have to be positive and the other is going to have to be negative because a positive times a negative equals a negative. So let's put that in the back of our heads for just a minute as I list my factors of 20. There's 20 and 1. I could do 10 times 2. And 5 times 4 are the ones that come in mind. But now it's time to think about my signs. If one has to be a plus and the other number has to be negative, let's do it strategically so it could somehow add up to a positive 8. So if we start here, 20 and 1, well, 20 plus 1 is 21. 20 minus 1 is 19. There's just no way that that's going to be adding up to 8. So let's get rid of that. If we jump down here to the 5 and 4, well, 5 plus 4 is 9, which is close, but it's not 8. 5 minus 4 is 1, so I'm really not seeing any way to get to 8, so I'm going to get rid of that option. And how about the 10 and the 2? 10 plus 2 equals 12, but remember, I need one of my signs to be negative. So if I made the 2 negative, all of a sudden, 10 plus a negative 2, that's really like 10 minus 2, that does equal 8. And 10 times a negative 2 equals a negative 20, because remember, a positive times a negative is a negative. So I knew I needed one of my numbers to be positive and one of my numbers to be negative. So my final answer here is going to be a positive 10 and a negative 2. All right, let's try this next one. What two numbers add to negative 12 and multiply to 27? So this looks a little different again. We're adding to a negative 12, but we're multiplying to a positive 27. Let's not worry too much about the signs yet and just start making our list, our factors of 27. What are some things that can multiply to 27? Well, I could have 27 and 1. Or 9 and 3. Now, so far, when I look at this, and none of those are going to add to a negative 12, so I have to play with the signs. So I think about this, I'm really used to the idea that a positive times a positive equals a positive. A positive 9 times a positive 3 would equal a positive 27, but it does not add to a negative 12. Well, hopefully you can remember that a negative number times a negative number also equals a positive. So if I made the 27 negative and the 1 negative, negative 27 times negative 1 does multiply to 27, but it does not add to negative 12. What if I made both the 9 and the 3 negative? Because a negative 9 times a negative 3 does equal a positive 27, and a negative 9 plus a negative 3 equals a negative 12. You might need some calculator help there. Remember, I owe Mrs. Murphy $9. I owe Mr. Pence $3. I owe a total of $12, but feel free to use your calculator to help you there. So I think we found our answer in that negative 9 and negative 3. So my final answer is that negative 9 and negative 3 add up to negative 12 and multiply to 27. So now we're actually almost done. This example is what your homework will look like. You're going to be asked to factor a trinomial. And let's think about it. We know from that first slide that when we're factoring a trinomial, we're breaking it down into two binomials. So let's just get those drawn. X squared is going to split up to x and x, because if you can remember, x to the first times x to the first equals x squared from what we learned last chapter. And now what you need to know is you're looking to see what adds to that middle coefficient. So we're looking to see what two numbers, I need two numbers that add to a positive 5, and then we always are looking, we use the constant or the third term for the multiplication one. So I'm asking myself, I need two numbers that add to 5 and multiply to 6. And all of a sudden, this is just like a problem that we've been doing. Remember, there are tons of combinations of things that add to 5, not as many things that multiply. So let's narrow down the list there. I'm going to move over here onto the right where I have a little more room. Oh, and we're not doing 20. Where did I get that idea? We're multiplying to 6. What are some factors of 6? Well, 6 times 1 equals 6. So does 3 times 2. I'm looking for a positive 6. So I either need my numbers to be both positive or both negative. And let's see, is there any way that 6 and 1 can add to be 5? Well, yeah, there is actually. If I made this 6 negative, 6 plus negative 1 is 5. But What's true about 6 times -1? That equals -6. I need it to equal +6. So I'm really hoping I can do something with my 3 times 2. Or 3 and 2. Let's think about it. 3 plus 2 equals 5. 3 times 2 equals 6. So I think I've got it. I'm going to use factors of a +3 and a +2. So my answer, what are two numbers that add to 5 and multiply to 6? 3 and 2. Well, where do you put those? They go right here. You have a +3 and a +2. Those are your factors. Now, the truth is you could put these in a different order. Order of multiplication doesn't matter. So if you decided to write your answer with the 2 listed first and the 3 listed second, it's totally fine. But there is your answer. Let's try another. X squared minus 8x plus 15. Go through, make your trinomial into two binomials. The x squared becomes x and x. We're looking to see what adds to that middle second term, and we're looking to see what multiplies to the third one. So what adds to -8 and multiplies to 15? Start by making a list with your multiplying. So factors of 15. I could do 15 times 1, and I could do a 5 times 3. Now, if it's going to multiply to a +15, I either need both numbers to be positive or both numbers to be negative, and I'm trying to add to -8, remember, from right here. So I think I see a -5 and a -3 is going to get me what I need. -5 plus -3 equals -8, which is what I needed, and -5 times a -3 is a +15, which was the second thing I needed. So -5 and -3 are what I'm going to put in to make my binomials. One more. X squared plus 4x minus 12. We're looking to see what adds to that second term and multiplies to the third one. So we're looking to see what adds to a +4 and what multiplies to a -12. I'm going to get myself set up and make my binomials. X squared splits to x and x. And I always start by narrowing things down using my multiplication. So when I make my list, I'm trying to multiply to a -12. Well, to multiply to a negative number, I'll remember one of my factors will have to be positive, the other will have to be negative, but I'll worry about that later. To multiply to get 12, I could do 12 times 1, 6 times 2, 4 times 3. Well, I need to pick two that add to a +4, and I need to make sure one is positive and one is negative. Well, 12 and 1, there's no way that adds to 4. 4 and 3, that gets me 7. But if I do a +6 and a -2, well, 6 plus a -2 equals -4, and 6 times a -2 equals -12. So I got it. 6 plus a -2 is a +4, which is what I wanted, and 6 times 2 is a -12, which I wanted. So I'm going to do a +6 and a -2. Keep in mind, you could have written your answer as x minus 2, x plus 6, if you wanted. All right, this last slide, I already have some extra examples where you have your trinomial. Here, 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 and here. And then I went and did the work of factoring, so you could go through and write these down and check them. And then you'll notice in the bottom corner, I actually checked my answer using the area model. So looking right here, this x minus 8, x minus 3, I did what we've been working on in the first half of chapter 7, did my area model, and I can see that when I combine like terms right here and here, I get a -11x plus 24. And that gets me the trinomial I started with. So whenever you factor and you get your two binomials, if you want to check to see if you get the answers right, just go ahead and apply that area model that you've gotten so much practice with and see if you can get back to where you started. Then you'll know you had the correct answer when you factored. All right, like I said, this is a big lesson. It is one not to skip. Take your time with it. Reach out to your teachers and ask for help. I hope that you feel, even though you maybe lost your mood ring, that you feel good about how this section goes for your math. Please, please, please don't just copy down the answer key. Take the time, learn this, get some help. We're here for you.